Green Party leader Annamie Paul is running for the third time in a riding in downtown Toronto called Toronto Centre. But does she have a hope of turning the red riding green finally? That seat will be key to her future as the Green Party leader. But Annamie Paul has made a decision. It's so important that she's basically going to skip out on the national campaign trail to centralize her efforts on that one seat. Will that be enough? And where does it leave Green Party candidates who are campaigning without their leader at their side? Well, let's find out. Green Party leader Annamie Paul joins us. Always a pleasure. This is your first federal election campaign, but the third time you're trying to run in Toronto Centre. Why did you make this decision, and it's a curious one for a national leader, not to travel across the country? Other leaders are both trying to win a riding and traveling across the country, even now during this pandemic. So what justifies the reason not to campaign with other Green leaders?
Well, you said it's a curious time that we're living in. Speaking of curious, we are in a fourth wave of pandemic. We're in an election that is unnecessary and very opportunistic. And so it makes sense for me to be here for that reason alone, frankly. Beyond that, we're a startup party, Evan. As you know, we're a party that's young, and every time that we win a seat, it's a brand new seat. We have to work hard for it. I would really have liked to have spent time traveling through Canada over the 10 months since I've been elected, but that has taken place in the context of COVID. So I'm going to be here, but I can talk about everything that's important to all of our national candidates right here from Toronto. And, again, things may change, but the bulk of my time will absolutely be here in Toronto Centre.
Right. It's not the youngest party. The Greens were founded in Canada in 1983. And I know you were hampered by travel during the pandemic, but all the other leaders are traveling. I'm just trying to, how do people consider you a national leader? How does your own party, and there's been a lot of internal divisions, think of you as a national leader? There's candidates that are trying to run for the Greens and they never get to see the leader. How do you do it by just focusing on basically your own riding? What does that say to people?
Well, I'm not just focusing on that, but Evan, I mean, there's no leader that's going to be able to visit every candidate. What we need to do, what our party has always done, is to rely on our incredible team of volunteers and members to power our local campaigns. Everyone, when I asked candidates, what can I do most for you in this election? What they said to me is, Annamie, win your seat. That's what you can do. Show that the Green Party can make a breakthrough in the toughest markets for Greens and in a province where we need to make a breakthrough if we're going to grow as a party. This would be an absolute game changer, and they're all invested in seeing me win here so that they can win in their seats as well.
Right, but that's a candidate. I'm not sure that's a leader. But just quickly, and I want to get to substance very quickly, but are you hampered by the fact that the party executives basically withheld $250,000 from your own campaign? So you're making a virtue out of a necessity here because you're too broke to travel.
I'm here where I need to be in order to do the thing that is going to make the biggest difference to our party. It's absolutely about that. It's about making a breakthrough where we need to make one, and it's about doing again what the Green Party has been trying to do for many years, which is win seats, win votes, one at a time. And look, I was speaking about Afghanistan today, Evan, here in Toronto Centre. There are 85,000 Afghans here in Ontario. Anything that I speak about on the national level, and I do that every single day, I have a real world example right here where I'm campaigning. I mean, this is really the world in a riding. And so it gives me a great opportunity to show people how all of the decisions that are being made in Ottawa are decisions that affect them in their day-to-day lives and affect real people.
Speaking of Afghanistan, you've called on the Governor General to reinvoke Parliament, reinstate Parliament, to have an emergency debate on the crisis of Afghanistan. But Parliament is dissolved and the Privy Council office is clear. They say, and I'll quote them, with the dissolution of Parliament for an election, all business of the House of Commons is terminated. Parliament cannot meet again any earlier than the date where the writs are returned following an election. In other words, it's just not realistic to call Parliament back. Why would you call for something that literally, constitutionally, can't be done?
Well, I was, first of all, the important thing is to try to find solutions when you're faced with a massive foreign policy emergency. And so I took lessons from the Emergencies Act, from Section 58 of the Emergencies Act, which seems to envision, what do we do when there's an emergency and Parliament has been dissolved? And it seems to say that the Governor General can summon Parliament back at the request of the Prime Minister in order to deal with that urgent business. And so that, again, applies to national emergencies. But surely, Evan, this is a foreign policy emergency that deeply engages Canada, and there should be a way for Parliament to be engaged. And let's put it this way. If we have found an important gap in our policies and in our ability to respond to emergencies, then it's good that we've identified that, and we need to find a solution, because we should be having a national debate right now and urgently about what we do in Afghanistan.
Annamie Paul, what about mandatory vaccinations? It's been one of the early issues. I don't know how long it will stand for. Justin Trudeau says all federal workers should have a mandatory vaccination or face consequences. Jagmeet Singh says the same thing. Aaron O'Toole says no. Both the Liberals and the NDP say all their candidates must be vaccinated. Are all Green Party candidates, must they get vaccinated? And what's your view on mandatory vaccination for federal workers?
We've asked all of our candidates to be vaccinated, and certainly, myself, my family, my children, we're all vaccinated. Vaccines save lives. We want to see every eligible person in Canada getting their second vaccination, or their first if they haven't had that one either. It absolutely is a critical part of our strategy for beating the pandemic. Whatever strategy the government puts in place, ours or another, is going to be a strategy that is going to have to recognize that there are people, for one reason or another, that are just not going to be able to be vaccinated. We have to recognize that. I think that it's very disingenuous for any party to suggest that there's going to be a way to mandatorily vaccinate every single person, and at pain of I don't know what kind of consequences. So let's talk about this like policy professionals and in a serious way that it deserves, and make sure that we're protecting as many people as possible, and that we're educating those who aren't vaccinated about the need to be vaccinated.
All right, Green Party leader Annamie Paul on a couple of big issues, Afghanistan, also the mandatory vaccination rate, which is going to be a big issue, and your campaign. Real pleasure to have you on the program as always. I hope we continue the conversation. Thanks so much, and good luck in your first campaign.
Thank you so much, Evan. Thanks for having me.